address those issues to accelerate the progress towards SDGs to meet the 2030 agenda. In this endeavor, data is a valuable resource that can aid us in monitoring and assessing the SDGs. I firmly believe that big Earth data provides us with innovative methods to utilize the power of digital technology to its full extent. With the help of aggregate, ddifferent, and equivalent data, we can gain valuable insights to provide decision makers with the information they need to make informed choices. However, we cannot accomplish this alone. Cross-disciplinary use of data and joint research is crucial. We must break down traditional silos and cooperate across different fields by bringing together experts from various backgrounds to foster innovative solutions.
Denmark is a nice country.
Partnership building is also crucial to drive progress towards SDGs. We need to build a strong scientific partnership and forge relationships with stakeholders from the different sectors such as higher education, private tech, companies, UN agencies, and international organizations. By working together, we can leverage our collective experience, expertise, and resources to accelerate progress and achieve our shared goals. Achieving the SDGs is a global challenge that requires a global response. To this end, CBAR, International Research Center on Big Data for Sustainable Development Goals, is making all the efforts to work with partners from around the world by sharing our knowledge and resources and developing collaborative initiatives to achieve progress towards SDGs through our CBAR's Global SDG Partnership Program. In the end, allow me to reiterate that we have the shared responsibility to work towards a more sustainable future, and I'm confident that through our efforts, step by step, we can make a real difference. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Shift and pressure on this need for data integration is that we are also moving to a more intersectional
Thank you, Professor Guo, Director General of International Research Center, International Center of Big Data
in evaluation, we are looking at
SDGs.
how do we start
Thank you very much. I think the colleagues,
how are we
most of us have seen
climate, education,
your
health,
presentation
and
this morning,
data to
and
have a more
it's very impressive what the CBAS has achieved in the use of the big Earth data
and then
for
lastly, not a really old
SDG
demand, but
goals
just a
and
repeated demand
indicators.
for
And
more
thank you very much.
real or near to
Now,
real-time data.
may I
And with all
invite
of these things
the
coming together,
Director
this
of
is where
Secretariat
the need
of
for data
GEO,
integration
GEO,
comes in,
the Jana,
and where the cases really fit in.
There
There are some existing data
opening
systems,
remarks.
but much of them do speak to more of a sectoral monitoring
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody.
Data
Thanks
integration,
for the
what I'm
invitation
talking
to
about
be
is
here.
really the definition that I've used
It's
here.
always a pleasure to follow
It's the
Professor
process for
Guo, although
combining
the
data
one
from
problem
several
is that
disparate
once you
sources
follow a
to provide
speaker
users
like
with a
Professor
single
Guo,
unified
everything
view.
has been said so
And
eloquently,
disparate
5 minutes, so
sources
you're
are
kind of
quite
scratching your head,
vast.
okay, what do I say now?
It's everything
But
from
it's also a good
PDF
thing because it means that we
documents
are
to
thinking
telephonic data,
in the same ways, and I'm sure it's not
some
just
of
him
these
and I,
are
but all of
current
us.
data sources. Some
So
are
we
quite
can just get
historical
down to
and solving
business and
for
actually
how would they
unpack
actually look
how
at
we go
historical
about this
systems that
breaking
might
down
not
the
be interoperable
silos
with
and the
current ones.
cross-disciplinary
And we
collaboration
do
and
know that
cooperation.
the kind of maturity
But since I
or
was asked to
ability
give
to
my own
develop or integrate
reflection
data
on
systems
how
is
do we
varied,
increase
and
the
we'll
timeliness
hear
and
quite,
accuracy
a
of
variety of
monitoring and
inputs from the
reporting
three
and
speakers.
implementing, achieving
The
SDGs,
global open
I think
data
I'll take
barometer
my
does give us
opportunity.
some kind of
And I
indication of
left my
where
notes
things
in
are
my
at.
hotel room, so I guess
So
rather than
on
speaking from my
indicators
notes,
around
I will
open
have to
data,
speak
we
from
do
my
see
heart,
that
which
Denmark,
maybe
for
is even
example,
better.
is ranked quite
So
highly.
what do we know about
And this gives us,
SDGs?
it's not
I
exactly
think
data
those
integration,
of us
but it
in
gives
this
us a sense
system
of
think SDG has become a household name. Pretty much. We've been at it for 8 years. This year we're marking the halfway point in Agenda 2030, and unfortunately, to no surprise, we know we're not on target to meet SDGs by 2030. And as a matter of fact, coming out of COVID, it has been said, we're worse off than we were before because we have experienced a significant setback in our development, and especially those countries who are most vulnerable and most underdeveloped and are really facing the greatest challenges vis-a-vis climate change and biodiversity loss. So for us, emerging in this post-COVID era, while human conflicts are still raging around the world, to build back better, we do need to act faster and smarter and build practical solutions based on big Earth data, based on trusted, proven, vetted knowledge underpinned by good science. One thing we know about SDGs is that they were created to be this integrated framework towards sustainable development. They are a complex system. The International Science Council in 2017 had done a first attempt to study the connections among those 17 goals. And they published a report. It was called Guide to SDG Interactions. Has anyone seen a spider web? Okay, every hand has to go up. Have you seen a spider web in your life? Yes. So those are the interactions among SDGs, synergies and trade-offs all over the place. So if we use our traditional siloed, fragmented mindset towards achieving SDG 2 on food security, we can go ahead and design a policy that will increase the use of land mass for crop production, but at the same time jeopardizing our goals in water sanitation, life on land. So to get this right, we really do need to understand those complex dynamics among those SDGs. And that means looking at them from the outside in and from the inside out. And thankfully, science and technology today has given us the tools. Big Earth data, artificial intelligence, digital twins, Web 3.0, modeling, metaverse. I mean, science technology is having the moment of their life right now, right? So why are we still not seeing those practical solutions at scale and at pace? It is because, as Professor Guo said, I think our biggest challenge is to get the different agencies, the different ministries, the governments, the businesses, the cities, the civil society, able to leverage smartly all of these advances. So we need to focus on creating the right culture, the right data ecosystem use culture to truly be able to act quicker, with more accuracy, while building more trust and social capital. So I'm really delighted that on this panel we have the speakers who represent all of these communities who are involved in using Earth observation, geospatial, statistical data, in solving and putting us back on track towards achieving those sustainable development goals. And I'm really happy to be part of this conversation. Thank you very much.
Advanced analytics and provide data visualization and so on. I'll not go through this PowerPoint, but basically saying it is underpinned by different.
Thank you so much, Jana, for your very important and very inspiring remarks. I think this the role of science, technology in the data sciences, and how they can contribute to the SDG implementation and help the countries to monitor, to assess the progress and understand the challenges, the driving forces, and how the people can go beyond the silos, the sectors. This is very important. Today, we have this session a very important the expert group from, as you said, from the different institutions. We have, well,
So we can
myself,
imagine
my name is Han
50,
Chun
60
Li. I'm
million or so,
working
55 plus or so
for
million, 18 plus our
CBUS
grant
under
beneficiaries, our
Professor
social
Guo, but
services,
also
you know.
I'm the
So there is so
executive
much
director
information
of
that can be
the International
integrated.
Science
So
Council's
we
the program on
conceptualize
integrated
this
research on disaster risk,
centralized
which
system
is also
to say
co-sponsored by
not that
UNDR.
we want
We
to
have
be to control
Charles
what our
Graham from
departments are
Esri,
doing in
and
terms of
we,
generating
for
data and
anyone
so
who
on.
work in
Why
the
don't we
data
conceptualize it, the
field,
government
that
department
we
and
know
DTME
the
leading,
roles
that
Esri
what
has
is the
played,
critical data in terms
very
of the
important. We have
citizen-centric
the,
kind of
so thank you for
data
Charles
focusing
for
on the
coming
citizens?
and to
What
share
kind of
your
critical
views.
data do we need
We have
to be able to provide
the Daniel
services for
from
citizens?
Daniel Hope
So
from
we are
the
saying that, you know,
United Nations Conference on
from
Trade
different
and
sources of data, we
Development.
just need
Thank you for
critical
coming.
data, not all
We have
data. And then we integrate that
Gretchen, Professor
information, and
Gretchen
then
Kalunji.
we integrate
I
in
had
a
the honor
centralized
to
system,
work
which
in
then is
UNESCO
accessible to the
time
whole of government and
under
all
her
stakeholders.
in the natural science
From
sector.
this
And when you
perspective,
were the
I'll talk the
Assistant Director
softer
General
issues. My colleagues will
for
go
Natural
into the
Sciences of
critical
UNESCO.
details, the implementation. They
And
have
your
real examples.
Professor
So from
Kalunji
our
has
side,
been
where we are
long time
located,
in
we realize that there are
the
challenges
university,
in
the
terms of the
international
legislative
cooperation between
mandate. It is a
universities,
challenge for us
and also is
because in government there is
now working
discussions
in the
to say
field of
who is
disaster
supposed to
risk
lead this data
reduction.
integration and
Thank
why.
you, Gretchen, for
That
coming.
was a challenge,
And we have
we had to
Jian Hui
engage different
Li, that
stakeholders on that. And then with that
who is
also
the
connected to that
Vice
legislative
President of CODATA
mandate
under
in
the
terms of
International
legislative
Science
environment in
Council.
terms of data,
Thank you,
to
Jian
say
Hui.
how do we talk
We
about data
actually
access,
work
how do we
very
talk
close
about
together.
quality,
Then
privacy
we have
issues.
one
So
change
in South Africa
because
we have
Stephen
what we call a POPIA
could
Act,
not
which
join.
also
And
protects
thank
individuals
you
in
for
terms of
Stephen's
their private data,
suggestion. We have
sharing
the
of data
great
and
honor
so
to
on
have
ethically. How
John
do we share data ethically? It is a
Kadal
challenge.
from the
There are these
SDG
discussions,
Data
so that
Alliance
becomes a
to
challenge
join
in
us.
terms of
So
integrating
it's a
data.
great pleasure to
These are
have
not
you
addressed.
here.
And then
Now,
what is the right
colleagues,
data for
as
integration?
you
As I
know,
mentioned earlier,
the
it's not
topics we
all
are
data
talking
that we
about
want
is
to
about
integrate.
innovative
So those
ways
discussions around
to make sure
what is
that we
the
have
right
a
data, what
better
data do we want to
timeliness
integrate?
and
And then
coverage
systems
of data for
in
SDG
government, in South African government, there are so many
indicators.
systems that are
And
running.
for that,
So how do we then
there's a number of
integrate? How do we
issues,
work together to
challenges we
integrate
have to
that
deal
data?
with.
So this
The
is, and you know, as human beings, we always want to hold on to our systems.
the
So the
side event we
discussions
have
around
today,
that,
we have
and in government, it's
two
always
overall
difficult to
themes, key
attract the
themes.
correct,
The one
the
is about
right skills to do this kind of a
nurturing
project.
the
So how do
partnership
you collaborate with
that
different
leave no one
stakeholders,
behind.
especially
Basically,
our
this is about the
universities, because they have the right
capacity
skills there.
of the
Um,
capacity
so
gap
these are some of
between
the
the
things
developing
that we
countries and
did
the developed
so far
ones,
that we have done
but also
in our
about the
process of
institutions, how
conceptualizing.
to share the,
We have what is
you know,
called an
better their
integrated government
knowledge,
relations in terms of a
tools, and
framework that allows
more
government
importantly, the data.
departments to work
So for
together.
this one,
So we have
regarding
invoked that and also
the
working with
nurturing
government
the
departments so that we
partnership
collaborate
that leave no one
together, we
behind,
conceptualize
how to
together, we
improve the
take
capacity
everyone
of
along.
developing countries,
In terms of
narrow
our
the digital
DPME,
gap,
articulating,
the
we are looking at
capacities,
what is called
and
the
how to
plan and
improve the
build,
sharing
which
of the data.
articulates the
For
mandate of
this, I would like
DPME,
to
giving
have
us that power
our
to be able to integrate
distinguished
systems
panelists to
in,
share
in
your
government.
own
I will not go through
views
all this.
and
We
ideas
also,
and
when we talk about
suggestions.
also data
So
management,
anyone wanted to
there
take
is
a
a
lead?
department that is responsible for policy making in terms of data.
Yes.
They
Yes.
haven't finalized that
I
the data
probably have the
governance
easiest
framework. So
Yeah.
answer.
we are working with that department to finalize that
What
framework.
we've done
And
as
also
recent as
collaborating, we've been
2015
collaborating with
to kind of kick off some
universities,
of the discussion
state
here is
agencies
taking a partnership
that have the
approach
skills, that are
to
doing a
our
lot of innovation, and also
solutions for the
industry.
SDGs. And
I
we've
will
done
pause
that
there.
through
I'll end
working
here
with the
with
tens of
just
thousands
saying
of
that data
nonprofits
integration in public
around
sector, to be
conservation,
specific, as opposed to
humanitarian,
private sector, there's
sustainable development,
nuances that need to
and
be
trying
addressed
to
beyond technical
understand
know-how.
how they build their
Accountability to the
applications to
public purse
support their
requires more
needs.
than technical. Um,
Early
a huge
on, I was
potential, though, to
tasked to
leverage on
take an
data.
inventory of
Could I?
applications that could support the SDGs,
So
and now
thank you
we're
very much for that
halfway
comprehensive
through, and we've still been
picture of
continuing that
the
assessment to
progress.
support
It's a
the
work in
development of the
progress, I do
technology
understand.
that we
And I
deploy
think
to support our
just to share
users
as
in
well,
accomplishing
I
their
supported or
monitoring and report of the
ran a team in
SDGs.
the
And that's
early
been
days of
through
this. And I think
partnerships
one thing
with
that did stand out during
many
that
different
development is the
governments
the critical role
private
of the many
sector,
stakeholders. And
academia,
that as much as,
nonprofits,
from
and
a
we've
technical
now
side, data
come to a
integration
point where
really
we have
requires a
a
comprehensive planning process.
solution
But
that
yeah,
aims
and I'm keen to hear
to
a little bit more
allow
about that when we get to
anybody
questioning.
to
But thank you
monitor
for
and
that.
report
I
on the
think next,
SDGs in a very
Swapnil, it would be
simplified
good to hear
way.
from you the case in
And we've
India,
done that
which I
through
know there are some
establishing
similarities,
different
but also a
partnerships.
different stage.
And it's
And
been
on that note,
driven
please can we have the
largely
next
by
slide deck up
governments
as well?
that have guided us through the process and use of our technology to serve their needs. So
Thank you, Jerusha. Thank you, Diana.
just
In
to
fact,
mention
I'll
that we do have
continue
now
what Diana has started.
ArcGIS
Much
solution
of
for
it
the
is
SDGs.
similar
And I like
in India.
to try to
So what I'll present
say
is
that
where, in
I'd
fact,
like my
Diana left.
mom to
So
be
we
able to
have
use it.
the systems that
It should be
Diana
easy.
described.
I think we
And
overcomplicate
we are
things a
building on
lot,
that
and we
system.
have
We
an
do not exactly
opportunity
have those
with
systems,
all the
but
work
we
that we
also
all
have
probably
a
do every
few
day to
products
support
that
the
we have envisioned
SDGs to
and which we
contribute.
have
So if we're
developed
able
over the
to
last
harness
few years. And
technology
that is something that I'll
and
present as a use
gather
case.
the political will to move forward in that collective web
So just to give
that
you the
was mentioned
context,
earlier, the
in
spider
India,
web that needs to
when we
happen
say
for us to actually
public
function.
data, there are two
We need to
categories that we are
figure
talking
out
about.
ways to take
One
advantage of
is
the talents we
data
have
that is
and
generated
move
through
things ahead
the
to achieve the
Ministry of
2030
Statistics
agenda.
and Plan Implementation,
Thank you. I just
or
wanted to kick that off
Registrar
as an
General of
idea
India.
and
So
an
these are
opportunity
large surveys,
for everyone to take a
for
look at.
example, the DHS survey or the
Thank you,
census.
Charles.
So this is again a public data set.
Tian Hui.
Second set of
Okay,
data
thank you, Chair.
is the data set
So
which
I just want
emanates
to
from
share
ministries,
one example,
which
and
is
I will
essentially
share
administrative data or
one
regulatory
point.
data. So
So
this is a
CBAS,
huge data
as
set. And in fact, there are
introduced by
several
Professor
of
Guo,
similar data sets.
established
So every
big
ministry,
data
every
platforms. I
department
think it's
would
a good
have
example. So
near
we
real-time or
open
real-time
all the
data
data, not
collected
only the
ground
data,
zero.
we open the
So
data,
so imagine a
analyze
country of more
services,
than
the users
600,000
from maybe
villages
the
collecting data
Africa,
on a
from the other
day-to-day basis
countries.
for
They just
one
use the
department or any
tools,
other
use the,
department.
this
So
cloud
that's the
services.
amount
They
of data
can,
that gets
do
generated
the
every day in the country.
SDG indicator
So I
assessment.
begin
I
with
think it's a
what
good
we say
it's a
as
good
India has
motor to,
historically
to make
undervalued the usage of administrative data.
contribute
By
to
that
the
I mean it
global
serves basic
countries,
bureaucratic
especially
purposes
the
more than anything
South
else.
countries.
So with
And
in the
in
last
my
five
mind, I
years,
think
when
now
we see there has been
the
a
big
digital
challenge is
revolution
how
across the
to
world, and
cross
India has
to
also
to move
shaped up
data
many digital
across
initiatives
the
around digital
country or
ecosystem.
across the
So we
continent.
are
It's
rightfully placed
especially
to
some
better
data might
harness
be
the
open,
administrative data
but
that gets
many
produced
data
through
is
public
not
system.
open. No,
So
it's
we have, if you look
not
at the
freely
Ministry of Planning,
we call it
Statistics and
maybe the
Planning
closed
and
data or
Planning
maybe
and
dark data.
Implementation,
So
we
you
have
can
a
just
grand
use it
vision
in your
document. I
institution,
won't
in
say
your
that we are
country.
implementing
But
everything
how to
there,
share
but
this
we are
closed
talking
data
about
is a
metadata
big challenge
standards. We're
for
talking
us.
about
So
creating data
I
lake,
think
which you talked about. But
we
beyond
might
that,
should
there are
to find
several
a good
state and
solution to
non-state
to
initiatives which have
share
been
the
taken
closed
to
data,
harness
not the
this
raw
data
data,
for
but
better decision
get the
making.
information and knowledge from
But
from the
the
raw data.
two or three
We don't
critical
need to move
aspects to
data
this is
from
essentially
one
strengthening
country to another
capacities,
country,
trust, and
but we can
collaboration,
use
which
it. We
is
can use
much
the
more
information. We
cultural
can
and
get the
deep-rooted
information,
problem
get the
than
knowledge to
structural or
do
systemic issues.
SDG assessment and even SDG research. So that might means we need to a
So
good
what I present
incentive
today is a
incentive systems.
initiative.
If
The
you
initiative is unique
that means
because
if you
it's a
give
partnership between
more,
civil
you can
society
get more.
and a private
So
sector
and the
organization. I
second
represent
wise, maybe
Sambodhi,
we
which is
need
a
a
private sector
new
consulting firm.
technology
And
solutions,
in
maybe
what
the
I
federation
understand in
learning,
most
and
LMICs,
even to
the
make,
connection
as you
between
say,
private sector
our
and government is
platforms
usually not
make
clear.
it
For me, if I'm working with
interoperable
data,
and make they can
I,
interoperability, and they
I
can,
would not be
not
exaggerating if
only
I say that
we not
government
just
would
share
look
the
at
raw
me
data. We can
through an eye
share
of
the
distrust.
capacity.
So
We can
this
share the
partnership where we're
services.
talking about
We just need
bridging
the knowledge.
this
So
trust
that
gap
might be a
through civil
good
society
motor to,
partnership
as you
helps me target
mentioned,
two things: the
to
executive,
to
which is operational capacity,
to
and second,
for the
the legislature,
SDG
which is
goals. So thank you.
authorizing environment. So
Thank you,
here
Tian
we are
Hui.
talking about this
Yes,
loop
Gretchen,
where
please.
Yes,
public value
I'd like to talk a
outcomes,
little bit about the central
legislature,
role of
and
universities and
executive
university
are
partnerships
interrelated.
in
For
working
me
towards the
to
SDGs.
act on
I mean,
administrative
it
data,
may
I have
seem
to
like a
act
given,
on operational capacity, I have
but
to act on
actually,
authorizing
we need to
environment.
be a lot more
For
creative in
me,
the higher education sector if we're really going to
for
make
me,
the
these are the data
progress.
users who are
Again,
impacted
reflecting on
if
the
I
speech
do
by
any tweak in
Professor
administrative data, if
Wahadong
I
this
create any
morning,
data
you know, he
products.
gave a very
So
good
my
overview of
the
CBAS.
initiative that
There's
I'm talking about
another
is called
aspect of
Development
CBAS which
Intelligence
wasn't
Unit.
stressed very
It
much, which
targets
is its effort to
having
work together,
solutions at the level of operational
creating
capacity, at
partnerships
the
in the
level of
developing
authorizing
world, which
environment,
is
and the
extremely
intention
important
is
and, in my opinion,
through
innovative.
actions around these
So,
two But what do I mean about transformations in higher education? You know, all of us presumably had university experience of one flavor or another. And what we will no doubt recognize is that the university educational processes and its research processes are sort of never the twain shall meet. The interaction between the two is grossly insufficient. And so what we need to do is we need to move towards models of multinational, multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary collaboration in university networks. They could be bilateral partnerships, but there are many other existing networks of universities that we can strengthen. So I think that's part of the potential secret sauce to dramatically enhance our ability to contribute. And I'd be happy to talk with anyone who's interested later on about the pragmatics of this and how to do it. And particularly, we need to do it at the undergraduate level, not just at the master's and PhD level. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. I think we know for decades that has been pushing for this multidisciplinary, intersectory, multinational university cooperation. I think you have made a good achievement in Sichuan University since you come to work in that university. I am sure that our audience, participants here may be interested to learn more later on that. Yes, yes, John.
Thank you very much. And yes, I'm John Kedar. I'm standing in for Stephen from the Public Foundation. I want to take a slightly different view to this. And I want to go to country level. Because actually, it's not with the SDGs about indicators flourishing everywhere. It's about actions taken at a local level that enables us to move forward and develop. And so I want all of us to sort of think of it from an individual country level here. I then want to say something that the Secretary General of the United Nations said in October. He said, "We need your geospatial expertise on two fronts, to measure progress and to make progress." So I want to take the conversation into, again, actions locally to make progress. I do that as an introduction to the SDG Data Alliance. It's a partnership between industry, donors, and the United Nations to first of all, measure progress and to make progress in individual countries. And it's about the country building up its capacity. There are two of our partner countries in the room here, South Africa and Cameroon. It's not about going in and delivering reports and delivering consultancy recommendations. It's about building the capacity in the country to create better geospatial information and to, using Esri technology, understand progress against SDGs within the country so that you understand where to invest scarce resources within the country, and you can make decisions and work out where to invest. So that's what the SDG Data Alliance is really doing. And the biggest partner of all in all of this is the country, because they're doing the work, not us. We advise, we support, but they're doing the work. And I just want to close, because I think this collaboration one, we've talked about lots of partnerships so far, but I just want to talk about in-country, because actually every single one of us lives in countries where government departments don't work together, don't talk to each other, and yet actually we're not going to progress unless we can generate that working across government. And that's something the SDG Data Alliance focuses on with our countries and helps countries sort of take that step forward. It's a really important point. And I think, as we talk partnerships, that's one we must never lose sight of. I think I'll shut up there, but that's some introductory points.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Daniel.
essentially on
So
69
building on
indicators.
what John was talking about on a
And
more micro
it
or
can,
country level,
it has a
I
gaming
think there are
system to
some
it
ways
because
that
it
from
believes
a more
in
grassroots
what you call
perspective,
it, rationalizing
we can
indicators
have
through
progress
different
towards this
interventions that
sharing.
can be
Obviously,
planned by
the
district
ideal
authorities.
is to have these active bilateral
Second bucket is
lines of
about elected
communication with
representatives.
direct
So in
alliances
India,
and etc., or to have these more
political
centralized
boundaries and administrative
agencies or
boundaries are
organizations like
different.
CBAS, where
But
you
political
kind of
boundaries do
centralize the
have
information and
influence on
share it and
administrative
make it
boundaries.
available
For,
to people to
politicians to
use
act
for
on the political
SDG
boundary, they have to converge
indicator
many administrative
calculation,
boundaries.
etc.
So we have
But I think there's
products
also a
across
lot that can be
parliamentary
done on the
constituencies also.
individual
We have
level
dashboards, we have regular
to kind of
reports, we have policy
contribute
briefs
to the
that come out.
broader body of knowledge
I'll
in
give an example of
the
rural
work
quality
going
of index,
around
how it looks like.
calculating
It's
SDGs, and I
humongous.
think that
We
starts
have
a lot with
sort of
publicizing the
analyzed
methods that
and
people
sort of created a
use to
repository of
calculate
around 12 data
their
sets.
analyses for SDGs. So
12
that's
data
not
sets.
just
These are
publishing
national level
the
public
results
data
of your
sets.
analysis,
And
but
using these
also
data
the
sets, we and
methods that
around
you use to
8
get there in
SDGs
a
that we
way
are
that
targeting,
another
69,
agency
62
or
indicators,
individual could
we have
follow
created
that and
what we call
reproduce
as
it
rural
for
quality
their
of life index.
geography
So
or
every
a different
collector
indicator,
or
but has a
commissioner of a
similar
district
input data
will
set.
have this on
For
her
instance, if you're
desktop.
using
She can compare
geospatial information and
her
you
district's
get
value with
a
neighboring
variable
district
out
or
of it,
block
like
value with the
crop
neighboring block.
coverage
And
in
this
a
has to be
region, to make that
sort of
method of how you calculate
located
that
within the planning
downstream
commission, the
number
planning board of
publicly
every
available,
state.
so that if someone in a
So this is
different
a brief
region
example. The website is
can
up. You can
find
check
that
the website.
information and use
It is
it
to be inaugurated by
for
Honorable
a different
Minister before it
geography.
gets to the
These are
state, but we are
small
waiting
ways
for
that
that
on
to
an
happen for the
individual
last
level,
few
because
months
at the
now.
end of the day, there are
But
many
it is
different
operational.
agencies,
The
many
website is
different
up.
individuals working
This
towards
is the last
quantifying
bucket of
progress on
our
the
work with
SDGs.
the DIU,
If
Development
this
Intelligence Unit.
type of
This is, for
work
me, this is more
is taken on
effective.
by
This
the
is a
individual
slow
to make
burn.
that public,
First
we
is
will have a lot less
you ensure
duplication of
smart
work and a
systemic
lot
tweak. How
more
do you do that? You locate yourself
knowledge sharing
physically
across
with the ministry.
institutions
You
where
have a data
individuals
center,
can
data PMU located
find
within the ministry.
resources
You
that are
enable
relevant to
minor
them without
tweaks.
having to
So
necessarily
ensuring
be in
better use
direct
of data that
contact
is already
with a
there
big
within the ministry. You
initiative
make sure
or
that ministries
international
share data
organization,
sets with each
but
other.
just have
Look
these
at
resources
mechanisms through which
available online
you
to
can
find for
engage
themselves.
in sort of interoperability of
Okay, thank you,
data sets
Daniel.
without waiting for
Well,
the national
thank you
ministry,
very much
national
for the
statistics
panelists.
ministry to
I'm
act
not
on
sure
it.
that our audience
Third is
will
engage with
raise a
external
hand, but
stakeholders,
I
analyze
think
data,
so far for our
academics,
first round,
think
and
tanks. So this is the first part of
I
smart
feel that
systemic tweak. These
you
are
have
small,
touched upon a
slow-moving
quite
constructs, but
important
highly effective.
point.
The second part of it is about
The,
approach and method.
the
So
issue of
our
the
data
partnership between
PMU
the
that I
government
mentioned
and the
about
special
is helping
private
ministry
sectors and
to
the
better their
special
data collection standards.
expert
So they have
the
something
companies
called a Mission Antyodaya survey,
like
which is the
what Charles
largest
has
survey in the
mentioned,
country.
the
We are
new
looking at improving the method
partnership,
of data collection,
the
using
incentive
better validation
systems
methods,
that Jiang
using
Hui
international
has
protocol for data
mentioned,
collection
how
while
to
sitting in their
enable,
office.
facilitate
And
the data
so
sharing,
through this, we are also
the
championing the cause of having
inter-university or
state-level forums for
university
looking
cross
forums on data.
sector
So this is
interdisciplinary,
something
but
that
also
is an
the
ongoing process,
university
and it's a slow burn,
across
as
the
I said.
national
But overall,
borders that
in
to
the
work
current
together.
political dispensation
The,
where you have a disregard for primary data being collected,
the
this
issue
is the
that
best
John has
one can
mentioned,
do
that
through the
how
administrative
to
data,
make
because you are
it's not
ensuring
about the
quality in data
reporting
collection,
as such,
you are
but it's to make
ensuring
sure
a level of
that the
freedom when it
data
comes to data
itself has
collection.
the
You
real
are
impact
ensuring
and bring the changes on the
sort of
local
smoothing of
and within
conflict
the
of interest when
country,
it comes to
across the
data
sectors.
quality. So
As
I'll
well
stop
as
here,
the
but before that,
Daniel
the
mentioned that
last
how to
disclaimer:
enable the
this is a
knowledge
grant-driven model.
sharing through
We are
the
looking at
platforms
sustaining this model through revenue
between
as well. We have
the
some smart
public and
products that
between
will be open to the market anytime soon,
institutions
and we
and the
intend to sell
individuals. So these are the
data as a
quite
product.
important,
But
very
this
rich
is
the
public
point
intent data.
already.
This would be
I
open
don't
data
know
for
if
all.
any
Thank you.
experts want to raise their hand. Yes,
So
madam.
what really stands out for me as you were presenting is the
If any
very user-centric focused
microphone, please.
approach, and that's obviously evident in the outputs as well, that the examples you shared, as well as the participatory approach, and you referred to the partnerships. So now we've heard from a representative from a national ministry, from a private company, but an advisor to a ministry.
Yes, please
And both from what we
mention
refer to as the
where you're
global
from,
south. So
your name,
now now we
identify
have a bit of
yourself, please.
diversity in
Thank
the
you.
presentation, also
My name
hearing
is
from
Marwale
Magic
from
from
South
views
Africa,
from the
but I'm also the
statistics
chair for
Denmark.
UNGGM Africa.
So please go ahead,
So I
Magic, and
think
share with us
I
your
want to
thoughts.
agree with what John Kader was saying, that
Thank you very
the
much.
implementation
As
and monitoring
Louisa
of
mentioned,
SDGs,
I'm
that's
from
at the
the
country
statistical
level.
office, so my
But we need to work together at the national department, as national departments towards a common goal of delivering these SDGs. But we know that we don't work together. And I'm a trained statistician, but now I have been converted into a passionate lover of geospatial data. So equally, even within ourselves, as statisticians and as geospatial information specialists, we're struggling to work together. The UN has put a framework in place on the integration of geo and statistics. I think that's the first step to start working together and appreciating implementing that framework. And working at our national level, at our local level, at our provincial level, working together to achieve the SDGs.
in order so that authorities can realize.
Thank you very much for your comments.
And then
I think this within the country, even sometimes within the one institution, there is this
here you can see
to get the
build up of the
data
system of
sharing
data.
and to work make the people work together. It's not it's a challenge. It's a permanent challenge. This I think eventually will lead to our next part of the discussion, because now with the technologies, with the increasing the availability of the share open data platforms, I think this will help to change. But we know that the open access, open science are still in the process. But eventually, this may help within the institutions, between institutions, within the country sectors, to improve the data sharing. As Jana mentioned at the beginning, we need a culture. We need a new culture of sharing. That I think this for this is the direction that we all have to move on. Here's another question to the panelists. Yes, please.
Because in our view,
thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Banabe Kuda from Cameroon, National Institute of Statistics. It's not really a question, but an advocacy I want to make for the less developed countries.
What we get in,
according to this issue of partnership and sharing data and practice,
authorities want to use
in
those
more
registers for their own
developing countries
like
mine,
like mirror
we are
registers
facing a problem which needs to be solved.
The personal
Is
registers updated
the one of
daily.
to adapt the
I
legislation,
don't remember about building
national legislation of national statistical system.
Also
If you have to go together with other actors that
is the
have
setup.
to share practice and data for to improve our needs, this problem is based for sometimes on national legislation that avoid and provide the practice to go together. Because we have some articles in this national law that says, according to confidentiality, and
we have lots of experience
national institutes or national system work in silos and not open.
And also
so we need to open our mind and to change our practice. That's the advocacy I want to make. And the other one is the importance of the financial support from private sector. In more in developed countries like mine and others in Africa, the main support financially is from the state, from the government, and secondly from external donors. But the national private sector is not really involved and engaged to finance statistical activity and data. So we need also to advocate for them to move in this area to finance the statistical. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Jana, you wanted to respond to that? Yes.
Citizen-generated
No.
data.
Okay.
The sequence of this big data, we are
okay,
starting
please,
using
go ahead.
big data for statistics. It is the one experimental phase.
John, you want to respond to that?
Lots of different questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's in fact both points are really important points. I just wanted to touch on the industry perspective. Because industry, what it's really good at is developing applications that can use the data, providing there's some money to be made, but developing applications that can use the data that creates the knowledge to change things and improve our lives. And I'll give an example, a very simple example, but it's one of the SDGs is around improved efficiency in farming small holdings, in fact, doubling the efficiency effectively. Now, we can achieve that in a whole range of ways, technology-wise. But to me, bringing data together on a simple smartphone application is one solution. Industry delivers the application. Government can deliver data, and you know, the wider Earth observation community and so on and so forth. And we can create the change that is necessary to help achieve that particular target under the SDGs. So I think the partnership with industry is really important, but I think I would add to your point about, you know, as a data provider, I think it's absolutely about delivering the applications that use data to support the change that we're all trying to achieve. So just adding to your point there.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
But even for larger data sets, the IT is in place. Our mobile phones are extremely powerful machines, so this can be used for data. This is
yes.
of we call it statistical bank. This is available for
question about incentives. What would incentivize, right? You've described a very complex, difficult, frustrating situation. So what would incentivize the agency to actually work together? From our data provider side, I feel like, you know, I'm going to channel Charles a little bit. We don't always make things very easy in terms of the way we deliver that data, even the solutions. And from a statistician's perspective, I can see how you'll be like, okay, I heard this Earth observation community talk about how remote sensing can help me do a survey a lot faster and more cost effectively. I'm going to go and check things out. And suddenly it's not as easy actually to get that data, the insights that you need. And you say, you know what, the heck with it. At least I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to stick to my old-fashioned traditional surveying methods that I know. I'm just painting a worst-case scenario, which may be a pretty real scenario. So what are the incentives that we could really tap into to engage the statisticians and other non-traditional users of remote sensing, get other observation data, to bring about that change?
Can make data acquisition, can, of course, data safari user
yes,
can also
the question
look what data is available.
to everyone, that is, anyone want to
take the data.
Give a response to that?
To use this system, you have to be certified because the data.
Yeah. Yes, madam.
We have to be sure that that data is not getting de-anonymized.
I think it's a tricky and interesting question.
If someone is breaching the rules,
my name is Ivanilda. I'm the UNRCO data manager in Cabo Verde Islands. It's something I would say that it should firstly come top down. The leadership has to come top down. What happens is at the country level, the agencies don't communicate because they are not mandated to do their work to communicate at the country level. So even though if we try to coordinate, to bring them to work together, they don't have, let's say, that comes from the top down saying, you have to work together. And then go to the statistics office or even at the country level to try to bring them together. And one thing that Mr. John was saying, working together, you have to look at the country perspective. Cabo Verde is a small country, 500,000 inhabitants, a seeds country, and also depending a lot on what is happening outside. For instance, the climate change is actually an impact in the country that moves everything. And when we talk about working together, you have to think of what the country needs, in fact, working together, but
the
at
lowest level possible. And here, if possible, it's variable level. We are in constant dialogue with data providers on whether data is good enough, what do we want, how they can improve. What we found out in this dialogue, that strict requirements do not work. Legislation is one and beautiful thing, it not always works. There can be different obstacles for data providers to provide data. So we also found out that the soft approach works better. What we actually do, we ask them to provide whatever they have of data, of course, within the description of metadata, and they give it to us. And then we fit it within the system. Of course, we need to validate the data, and then we either use comparable data sets or use a look at the development. And if there are breaches, then we react. And then why do I, maybe it's provocative, but that's how you will remember this discussion and maybe have some question. Why do we think statistical office is a good idea as the one who's supposed to integrate data? Well, we are neutral. If data is good enough, we take it. If data is not good enough, we don't take it. And then you have huge dialogue, because some municipalities give us data, then you have civil society wanting to give us data, but we say, well, with all respect, the data does not live up to our quality requirements. So we are neutral, and also we are trusted. So we treat everyone equally, we are trusted, that we comply with all the quality requirements and all the statistical requirements and publish the data that gets close to the truth, wherever, however you can define it. Thank you.
Thank you, Majid. Given our current time, I think I'm going to first open up the questions to audience, and then circle back to my questions to you. So are there any questions from the room? If you have a question, please raise your hand and then you'll receive a mic. Okay, so lady over in the front, and number 1, and then 2, Kauta, and then 3. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the speakers. My name is Anita Ayo, and I'm from Nigeria. I wanted to ask a question about centralizing data. So we have about 4 or 5 agencies that usually take biometric data from citizens. For instance, when we have, you want to get your driver's license, they have to get your biometric data. You want to renew your international passport, they have to get your data. We have something called identification management as well. So we have about 4 government agencies that usually take biometric data. And I'm just wondering if, from what you have said, I know South Africa, you're saying you guys are trying to centralize things. But in the case of maybe Denmark, I'm wondering if you have like a system where once that data is taken by a particular government agency, other government agencies have access to that data instead of citizens have to repeatedly take their biometrics whenever they need to get any ID card or any form of government identity. Secondly, with regards to who manages the data. So when I'm talking about biometric data like fingerprints and all of those things, will it still be the Bureau of Statistics managing such data? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take all of the questions. So then the gentleman in the front, you can pose your question since the mic is right there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Edmund. I'm from the Singapore Department of Statistics. I have a few questions. The first is about the right data for integration. I'd like to know more, how do you decide what is right data? Is it like depending on the use case? And I think the first speaker mentioned about quality and standards, but it could be some, but I was wondering what happens if the data is indeed useful for use cases, but the quality is not there yet. Do you then take a more agile approach to take in the data, integrate, and then while you slowly, concurrently improve the data quality? Secondly, also, the issue with your data integration is that if the database grow bigger and bigger, is there any process where you drop data items from the integrated database? For example, you like monitor usage and decide that these data items are no longer in use, are no longer commonly requested. Do you then have a process to drop these fields? My next question is more towards India, because you mentioned that you are selling data as a product. I was just wondering, are there any privacy issues because the data are from government? Then I presume you're making money from selling the data. Is there a profit sharing arrangement with the government? And yeah, so I'm just wondering whether the people are just concerned over the sale of their own data to the public sector. Then my next question is for Denmark. Because you mentioned that what goes into the NSO can only be used for statistical purposes. Then what about use cases by government agencies that needs to integrate data for their operational purposes or for their service delivery? Do they then have to replicate the whole infrastructure that's within Denmark to fuse the data for their non-statistical purposes? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got those questions and we can just clarify them, but then Kauta and then we'll.
Okay, thank you, Jerusha. My name is Houghton Tizani. I work with Diana I come from South Africa. My question, I think, is quite related to the question from the lady who comes from Nigeria. I think the presentations were more like interrelated. The first one was asking more questions. The last one was more about answering some of the questions related. So my question is actually based on the last presentation from Denmark. I saw this is the slide 2, the one that shows the relationships, and it shows the central register. I think it's the center at the top. I don't remember the exact name. So the question is that how do you establish the mandate to be able to get data from different departments? You said something around that you of course you said at the end, you said that you are trusted, but you cannot just be trusted. You have to have some sort of a mandate. Is that the government office, or is this a private office? If it's a private office, it means you have to be mandated for you to get the unique identifier. I don't know how do you establish the unique identifier. It's the ID number of each and every individual country. It's quite protected from I'm coming from. So maybe you have done something for you to get to that level that you can ask for a unique data from the departments. So how do you come up with the unique identifier, especially from the health data, because I saw you have also health. How do you get them? Because we struggle with that. Normally where we can get data from such departments is already some sort of information data that is already some sort of analyzed, not at the unit level where you can get a unique identifiers. So how do you get to that level that you get data maybe using that unique identifier from different departments so that you can consolidate data to come up with something that is conclusive? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take the one more question and then allow you to respond.
Thank you, all the speakers. My question is to Deanne, because she talked a little bit about the data lake, but she didn't explain in detail. My session tomorrow, I'm also a speaker in that panel at 1:30. If you guys have time, come listen to me, because we are also talking about the data pool, data lake at the local level, right? So how do you explain that data lake at the centralized system so that I can relate and get back to my country and see how can I link that national data lake system with the concept of our local data lake system? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So I think we can start with you, Majik. There was questions around the centralized data. Yeah, and how does that work? Kind of, do you have multiple ministries collecting the same data, or is it, how have you gotten to a centralized point? There was also a question around who manages the data. That was it you, and then the mandate. And I think, Swapnil, the questions towards you were more around how do you decide on what's the right data, and the question related to profit share. some of these, Dinah, you might also have points to make, but I think the last question was more directed to you around how do you link that a local level data lake to a national level data lake? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I should start with the last question from South Africa. The beauty of the system is we have legal mandate to access all the public data. That's how it is. We luckily do not use this mandate very often. The other agencies know that the legislation is in Denmark is never constructed in this way, that not only that we can ask, that we ask and they have to deliver. So this is fairly simple. What we wanted to do recently was to get a similar access to private company data, and this was rejected on a very early stage. So we are not getting. We don't have same mandate for getting private sector data, and also in discussions here, we are becoming more and more aware that private sector data can be very supportive in showing the statistics and data situation even better. So just legislation, and legislation is old, 68 something, 1968 it was adopted. This was some kind of lucky punch. Then to Nigeria questions, every person in Denmark has this central personal register number. And that is how it works. Usually, lots of things are digitalized. So you have some digital security mechanism, but basically, if I want to, let's say, pay for my parking in my neighborhood, I log in via my personal number, and they have all the information. And then they just ask me, do you want to pay for this and this car or with this registration number? And I say, take yes or no. And that's how it works. So all the system, every authority working with individuals have my personal number and they have data about me. I'm not going and repeating. Now they have, for a few years ago, they have created a digital system of accessing the banks and like financial transactions. Then you need like a specific app on your mobile phone where you had to scan your passport in order to verify you are you. But as soon as the app is working, it is like your ID. Or this is how you get access to your tax registers, health registers, and so on and so on. Then there was also a question about health data. Health data is it's not tricky, but Statistics Denmark is not the only institution in Denmark working with health data. We get the data for the statistics we are producing, but there is also a health data authority institution, and they are also producing probably majority of health statistics. What we are doing with them when it comes to monitoring the SDGs, we ask them to fill in instead of statistical office. And I think I used my time and questions.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So there were a few questions on data quality, in fact, and it would be wrong to say that data quality issues are not there. Data quality issues are there and across the board. And there are bright spots, there are pitfalls. There have been interventions through which you collect data digitally. And when it comes to digital data, for example, if you're collecting data on employment, number of days of employment generated for an individual. So this is based on whether she or he sort of received payment or not, which is a digital data that is coming in. So you don't have many sort of pitfalls there. But if you have human intervention when it comes to data collection, then there are. But that's why the Development Intelligence Unit is working on sort of with two-pronged approach. One is making sure that you engage with government so that there are validation measures that can be built in to improve data quality eventually. But that's a slow burn, that's a slow process. But within whatever we have, so I can confidently say that the data is use-worthy. Problem is data is not getting processed. So if you process it, if there are errors, the errors would be universal. If there are bright spots would be universal. So you can create the best case. We are working towards creating validation measures for it as well. So I think in the time to come, quality of administrative data would be better. On privacy issues, the kind of work that we are doing, unique ID is not accessible to us. So what we are getting data is at the level of the lowest planning unit. So for me, if a village council is a planning unit, I am getting data aggregated up to that level. So I cannot identify individuals. So that's the basic premise under which we are working. That's a basic contract that we have with government. We cannot use, we are using anonymized data. Third, on profit and profit sharing, we cannot harness government data and create profit. We cannot. It's a public data, and we are married to this concept, and we would never do that. What we are looking at, we have created a special purpose vehicle that beyond the data, working on data that government produces, we also have other channels of consulting. We have, beyond it, we are collecting primary data using Sentinel sites. We have a panel of around 70,000 households in the country. And on a tech platform, we are collecting data on a real time for several purposes. For example, we recently did a study on marginal farmers and status of their marginal farmer. So that is something these data products would eventually sort of create a profit model or business model for us. We are not going to engage with profit with data that is publicly available. So that's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Swapna. Diana.
I think I'll start with the question regarding local level data. Local level data in South Africa is a bit of a challenge. What I can mention is that in terms of the way government is organized in South Africa, at local level, provincial level, and national level. So you'll find that at different levels, there is some form of an autonomy. And with that, then that becomes a challenge, because it's a challenge and it's a good thing, because then it's kind of decentralized. So when it comes to then issues of data, then when we are sitting at a national level, like the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation, that becomes a bit of a challenge. But we have a department that coordinates all these three levels. It's called Department of Corporate Governance. So they've been working on a project called the District Development Model. What it does is to look at they call it a one plan and a one budget. So it coordinates the three levels, and in that, then data integration also is happening at that level. So in my presentation, that's why I was mentioning a lot of collaboration and not duplication. So we are not planning to duplicate, but we are planning to draw from what is already existing in government. So I hope I answered your question. So that Department of Corporate Government, they are working in that space, and we are working with that department. So it is a department that is a center of government, just like Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation. A center of government in the sense that it supports the executive, the presidency office. The National Statistics Office. Okay, then I'll come to the National Statistics Office. So in terms of statistics, South Africa, it also sits in the presidency. It is our sister department, if you can say. So it sits in the presidency. They are responsible for official statistics, and they work with all the different levels, the local level, the national level, the provincial level as well. The provincial level is responsible for implementing government policy. National level sets policies, and the local level, then they are responsible for service delivery. If you can check South African Constitution, that's where it's articulating the way government is organized. So to also touch on statistics South Africa, there was a question on data quality. In South Africa, Statistics South Africa, they've been working on a project or on administrative data, which is data sitting in government departments, for example, Department of Health, Department of Education, to assist them in terms of improving the quality of data using what they call their a statistical framework that they have, Statistics South Africa, which mentions the 7 dimensions or 8 of data quality. So, but it's a voluntary exercise at this point. It's not a forced exercise where then Statistics South Africa is working with different departments. So as DPME, we support that process as well. I think there was also a question on maybe I think maybe we can continue.
I think, okay, thanks. We are at time, so if there are other questions, you can use the app. I think in closing, I have 3 questions, which is not for you to answer right now. It's really an open question for you to contemplate or add your inputs on the chat if you've got similar experiences. One is just reminding us, like, who are the different stakeholders? Because I know everyone touched on stakeholder engagement, multi-stakeholder. Who are they? Like, who should we be engaging in data integration, and how do we do that? 2 was around existing frameworks, like what exists. So I know there was mention that there wasn't specific frameworks or standards for metadata, but are there others that maybe some of you have used? I know that there's one like the geospatial framework that we can also share on the chat, but what exists that would guide future data integration initiatives? And then the last question, because I am an M&E practitioner, is so what? Data integration, so what? What does this all lead to? Which is hopefully in the next UN data forum, you'd be able to tell us the story of change, of like, how has this actually led to data use and actual impact? So on that note, yeah, thank you panelists and thank you participants.